Yakov, a big, middle-aged Siberian man in the prime of his life, lost everything he had, his beloved wife and his young son. The world came crashing down when he received the news that the bus his wife and son were using to get home from a visit had crashed, derailed. All plans for the future, all hopes, and the very meaning of life were irrevocably lost. How Yakov survived all of this, he probably did not know himself. Now he tried to communicate less with people and to be more alone with himself and nature. He gladly took on the duties of a gamekeeper and part of the duties of a forester, taking on his shoulders the responsibility for the preservation of forests and looking after animals. Just now, Yakov was walking through the winter forest on his skis. Light frost added vivacity and excitement, and snow-covered landscapes willy-nilly made him believe in a fairy tale. Though after all Yakov had experienced, Yakov knew for sure that there were no wonders and fairy tales in this world. All stories about them were fantasy and illusion. The ranger put hay and brooms for ungulates in his special troughs prepared for them. It's hard for animals in the taiga in winter. There is not always enough food, so you have to help them to survive this harsh time of year. We have our own treat for hares. They like very much the branches soaked in strong salt brine. Yakov smiled as he noticed a pair of impatient hares watching him from behind the bushes, waiting for him to give them a treat and leave. Not afraid at all, he noted to himself, knowing that one day it might play a cruel trick on the hares. Leaving the food for the forest brothers, Yakov went to the next site. He had 3 more of the same to go around today, and each had a lot of hungry animal tracks. When he stepped away from the feeders, the man adjusted his jacket, buttoned it up, and looked straight up into the sky, so blue and not so high in winter. My son is out there somewhere, he involuntarily thought. A bitter lump came up. He was probably looking at me from above and smiling. Yakov wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his jacket and went on his way. Involuntarily, images from the past happy life appeared in his head, as if it was not with him, he thought, remembering the moments of happiness he had experienced. Now it all seemed so distant and unnatural, as if some evil sorcerer had decided to mock him by inserting these memories, making him suffer helplessness every time. How long the huntsman would torment himself with memories from his past life, no one knows, but his bitter reflections were suddenly interrupted by the she-wolf who blocked his way. Yakov was at first dumbfounded by surprise and impudence of the predator, and immediately pulled his carbine from his shoulder. However, the wolf did not behave angrily. She did not grin or show her deadly fangs. On the contrary, her gaze was meaningful and full of anxiety. As he was about to shoot into the air to drive the predator away, Yakov suddenly changed his mind, meeting the wolf's eyes. Her eyes as if they wanted to tell him something important that made her come out to the man. All right. He turned to the she-wolf and put his carbine back where it belonged. Tell me, what did you want? On hearing the man, the she-wolf ducked her muzzle to the ground, looking at him sideways, but still she did not hide in the woods from the possible danger, though it was clear that she would like it. Grumbling, the predator slowly turned around and walked away, looking back at the huntsman and howling softly under her nose from time to time. "O Lord, your deeds are wonderful," said Yakov, and followed the forest beast. Yakov had been in the taiga for years, had seen many things, a tiger, a bear, and a countless number of hares and foxes, but never saw anything like this. As if he could not believe in what was happening, he again stared at the she-wolf, who was leading him into the woods. Tell anyone? They will not believe. They will laugh, thought Yakov. I do not believe myself that I followed a wild animal into the woods on my own free will. Yakov was still amazed. After a while, the huntsman noticed that the wolf crouched noticeably on the front paw. Even in the footprints, it was readable. Immediately, memories came to mind when 3 years ago he stumbled in the taiga on the trapped wolf cub, a teenager. Isn't that my little wolf cub grown so big? A guess, like a spark, pierced the consciousness. Yakov remembered the incident perfectly. The animal's paw had been badly injured in the hell trap, and the eyes. He still remembered the expression of the eyes of the tormented animal, which had already spent many days in the grip of the iron jaws. Yakov smirked, remembering how at first he had been wary of approaching the wolf cub, thinking that it might pounce on him, mistaking him for a danger. But the predator, on the contrary, seemed to realize that this man had come to help her, and she waited patiently for the gamekeeper to succeed in freeing her from those shackles. "Miracles," muttered Yakov involuntarily to himself. The same time he remembered his reflections an hour ago. Meanwhile, the she-wolf led the ranger to a steep slope of the mountain. Apparently, an avalanche came down here quite recently, breaking some young trees and blocking everything with snow. "And why did you bring me here?" Yakov asked the she-wolf, not understanding. And suddenly he was dumbfounded when his gaze fell upon a ski sticking out of the snow. A human, he guessed. An avalanche had swept the skier away. A human being must be around here somewhere. Yakov rushed to look around all the places nearby and began shouting, urging his voice to be heard. Pretty soon he heard a quiet woman's voice coming to him as if from under the ground. The she-wolf, making sure that the man began to dig, raking the snow with a broken ski, also imperceptibly melted into the forest thicket. Soon an arm appeared from under the snow, then another, and finally Yakov managed to pull the victim to the surface. It turned out to be a young, pretty woman named Daria. It turned out that the girl and her friends often skied here, doing free ride, but this time she had no luck, and suddenly an avalanche appeared, dragged her down with it, burying her under a thick layer of snow. "I already thought that was it." Crying on the ranger's chest, the girl confessed. "Something is wrong with my leg." She pointed to her injured leg. "And there is no connection, and all mine are lost somewhere." She was enumerating her failures. "And how did you find me?" Daria suddenly asked, looking into Yakov's eyes. He unwittingly noted how large tears hung on her long and thick lashes. "Like diamonds," the ranger remarked to himself. "You wouldn't believe it anyway," replied Yakov, smiling. "I was brought to you by a wolf friend." For a moment, the girl, taken aback, suddenly made an incredulous face. "Are you serious?" she asked again. "Well, here, I told you you wouldn't believe me," Yakov laughed, pointing out to Daria fresh wolf tracks. Sitting in the gamekeeper's lounge with a mug of hot tea, Daria watched the logs crackling in the stove, listening to the story of her miraculous rescue. Despite the improbability of the event, she wanted to believe Yakov. A man with such eyes and with such a heart could not lie. They would have to wait 2 days for the rescuers to get to the taiga in the backwoods, but this time seemed to the girl one of the best of her life. Yakov was kind and caring, and her leg hardly hurt anymore if she didn't try to stand up. They had already learned so much about each other during their time together that they didn't want to part at all. When the rescuers still knocked on the door, Daria suddenly grabbed his hand. "Promise me that we will see each other again," she asked, almost with a pleading voice. "We will see each other again," the ranger assured her. "And if you think about getting lost again, I'll ask my gray wolf again to find you."